The consortium of civilized species convened in the gleaming, crystalline halls of the Galactic Summit, a place where diplomacy flourished, and conflict was an unthinkable relic of the past. Representatives from 100 worlds sat in hushed anticipation as the delegation from Earth stepped forward. The humans were a curiosity, a new species, recently discovered, and already garnering a reputation as resourceful, ambitious, and deeply unpredictable. The human ambassador, a composed woman with piercing eyes and a disarming smile, began her presentation. She explained humanity's evolutionary journey, the struggles of survival on a chaotic planet, the transition from hunter-gatherers to builders of cities, and the unparalleled rise of technology and innovation. As she spoke, holographic images displayed scenes of Earth's history: prehistoric hunters stalking mammoths, knights in shining armor, and modern astronauts walking on the moon. A ripple of unease swept through the alien representatives. The peaceful amphibian-like representatives from the water world only exchanged glances, their bioluminescent skin dimming with concern. "You mean to say," one of them interrupted, "that your species evolved as hunters? You killed other creatures to survive?" The ambassador nodded. "Yes. Predation is a fundamental part of our history. It taught us to adapt, to innovate, and to endure." The room buzzed with disapproval. The insectoid delegate from Vorkuth clicked her mandibles in agitation. "Such practices are barbaric. Civilized beings do not resort to violence to sustain themselves." Unfazed, the ambassador continued, "While our predatory past shaped us, it does not define us. We've also built systems of cooperation, empathy, and peace. We've learned to harness our instincts for the greater good. Humanity's greatest strength is its duality. We are both predator and creator." The words did little to soothe the unease. A holographic chart appeared, showing a timeline of Earth's wars, countless conflicts, spanning centuries. The numbers were staggering. The reptilian delegate from Thrixis hissed in disbelief. "Your species has waged war against itself?" "Unfortunately, yes," the ambassador admitted. "But through those struggles, we've also developed resilience, ingenuity, and a deep appreciation for peace. Without conflict, we would not have created medicine, art, or the technology that brought us to the stars." A long pause followed as the delegates processed this revelation. Finally, the arbiter of the consortium, a towering being whose translucent body shimmered with shifting colors, spoke. "Humans possess a troubling history, but also undeniable potential. However, we must ask, does your species have factions or cultural differences that could pose a greater risk to our peaceful coalition?" The ambassador hesitated, then smiled. "Like any species, we are diverse. Each culture brings unique strengths and perspectives. Some are more enthusiastic than others." A curious delegate from the moon Enivax raised a tentacle. "Which among your cultures is the most dominant?" The ambassador's smile widened, tinged with amusement. "That would be the Americans." The room fell silent. "Americans?" the arbiter repeated, the word rolling off their unfamiliar tongue like a pebble in water. "Yes," the ambassador replied. "They are a subset of humanity known for their creativity, boldness, and, shall we say, unrelenting determination. They are innovators, explorers, and fiercely competitive. They embody the spirit of humanity's drive to achieve the impossible." An audible murmur spread through the chamber. "Are they dangerous?" someone asked nervously. The ambassador's eyes gleamed. "Only if you stand in their way." Delegates whispered furiously among themselves, their translators working overtime to decipher the implications. The arbiter silenced the room with a wave of its shimmering appendage. "If this is true, it warrants further investigation. We must understand the full scope of humanity's capabilities, and the nature of these Americans." The ambassador inclined her head respectfully. "As you wish. I believe you will find them enlightening." As the human delegation departed, the alien representatives remained in the chamber, their collective unease now mixed with a flicker of curiosity. They had expected to encounter another peaceful, cooperative species eager to join their ranks. Instead, they had discovered a race shaped by struggle, ambition, and a cultural subset that promised to challenge everything they thought they knew about coexistence. For the first time in centuries, the consortium felt the faint, unfamiliar sting of apprehension. The aliens of the consortium were eager to learn more about humanity, but their curiosity was quickly met with confusion and shock during the cultural exchange program. Among the delegation of humans sent to represent Earth, the Americans stood out almost immediately, and not in subtle ways. The first incident occurred during a casual meal shared between the humans and their alien hosts. While most human representatives politely tried the nutrient-rich algae cubes provided by their hosts, the Americans had brought their own food, a grill, several pounds of marinated meat, and a level of enthusiasm that was both endearing and intimidating. As the smell of sizzling ribs and smoked brisket wafted through the air, the alien attendees began to retreat nervously. One alien, a herbivorous being from the forested planet Ormu, cautiously approached the Americans. "What is this practice?" it asked, observing the glistening, charred meat with visible discomfort. The American chef, clad in an apron that read Grill Master of the Galaxy, grinned broadly. This is barbecue. It's not just food, it's a tradition, an art form, and some would argue, a way of life." The alien hesitated. "But the flesh was once alive." "Sure was," the chef replied cheerfully, flipping a rack of ribs with a theatrical flourish. "That's what makes it delicious." The alien delegation withdrew en masse, murmuring about the humans' gruesome culinary tendencies. Despite their discomfort, some couldn't help but be intrigued by the humans' unapologetic passion for their traditions, even ones that seemed, by alien standards, barbaric. This pattern of bewilderment and reluctant fascination continued. When the aliens invited the humans to demonstrate their scientific and military prowess, they anticipated measured, precise presentations. Instead, they got a crash course in the uniquely American blend of ingenuity and audacity. During a military exercise meant to showcase cooperative strategies, the Americans were given a simulated fleet and tasked with defending a small outpost against a hypothetical invasion. While other human representatives relied on careful formations and conservative tactics, the Americans opted for a strategy that could only be described as excessive. They quickly modified their fleet's standard weaponry, turning a few ships into makeshift battering rams, while others launched coordinated barrages with an intensity that left the alien observers speechless. The exercise ended in minutes, with the simulated enemy fleet obliterated and the outpost intact. An alien strategist, visibly flustered, approached the American commander. "Why did you deploy such extreme measures? Surely, a more efficient solution would have sufficed." The commander, a gruff but charismatic figure, shrugged. "Sure, but where's the fun in that? We're not just here to win, we're here to make sure no one even thinks about messing with us again." The aliens were dumbfounded. Efficiency, they realized, was not the Americans' priority. Dominance was. They didn't just aim to achieve their goals, they aimed to do so in ways that left a lasting impression. As the cultural exchange program continued, the alien delegation began to notice the pervasive nature of American influence. In every interaction, Americans displayed a relentless drive to excel, innovate, and above all, compete. Even in casual conversations, the Americans seemed to view every situation as an opportunity to win, whether it was a discussion about planetary governance or an impromptu arm wrestling match with an alien diplomat. One incident stood out above all others. An alien economist, tasked with studying human economic systems, approached an American entrepreneur during a technology exhibition. The entrepreneur was selling a product he called the Universal Survival Kit, a compact, self-contained box filled with tools, rations, and emergency gear. The aliens studied the kit skeptically. "This device is intriguing, but it seems unnecessary. Our civilizations have eradicated the need for such individual survival measures." The entrepreneur smirked. "Maybe for now. But what happens if your planetary grid goes down? Or if you're stranded on an uncharted moon? This kit's got everything you need: solar chargers, water purifiers, even a distress beacon. You're not just buying a box, you're buying peace of mind." By the end of the exhibition, The alien economist was baffled to discover that the entrepreneur had sold hundreds of kits, not only to other humans but to curious aliens as well. The lesson was clear: Americans didn't just innovate, they excelled at convincing others to buy into their vision, often quite literally. As the program concluded, the alien delegation couldn't deny the Americans' influence. They were bold, resourceful, and unapologetically confident. Every encounter reinforced the same conclusion: while all humans were unique, the Americans embodied a particular intensity that set them apart. For better or worse, the galaxy would never be the same. The consortium began compiling reports on the humans' activities, but it was the Americans who dominated every analysis. Their unique blend of audacity, creativity, and sheer force of will stood out in ways that alien observers found both fascinating and deeply unsettling. The deeper they delved into the data, the more they realized that Americans operated on principles that often defied conventional logic but yielded extraordinary results. One of the most striking examples came from a trade negotiation between an American diplomat and a delegation from the resource-rich planet Velkor. The Velkorans prided themselves on their shrewd bargaining skills, often leaving their trading partners at a disadvantage. They entered the meeting confident that they would easily outmaneuver the human representative. The American, however, approached the negotiation with a level of charm and bravado that the Velkorans had never encountered. He began by casually complimenting their planet's natural beauty, seamlessly transitioning into anecdotes about Earth's own landscapes, peppering his speech with humor and warmth. By the time they reached the actual terms of the trade, the Velkorans found themselves agreeing to conditions they hadn't even considered, ones that heavily favored the humans. As the delegation left, one Velkoran remarked, "It was as if he convinced us we were winning while we gave him everything he wanted." Such psychological tactics weren't limited to diplomacy. Americans seemed to have an innate ability to dominate every social interaction, whether it was persuading alien traders to adopt Earth currencies or convincing entire planets to adopt human entertainment. The spread of Earth's pop culture was perhaps the most visible indicator of this phenomenon. Alien markets were soon flooded with products inspired by American culture. Cowboy hats became a symbol of rugged individuality on the desert planet Phyrexis, while entire alien cities held festivals dedicated to American superhero movies. Even traditional alien art forms began incorporating elements of Earth's culture, creating hybrids that fascinated and confused their creators. The sheer speed at which American culture spread was unprecedented. It wasn't imposed, it was embraced, a testament to its adaptability and appeal. The consortium's analysts noted with unease that this cultural dominance wasn't accidental. Americans excelled at storytelling, creating narratives that resonated across species. Whether it was the underdog rising against impossible odds or the relentless pursuit of freedom, these themes transcended cultural boundaries, embedding themselves in the galactic consciousness. However, it wasn't just their cultural influence that cemented the Americans' reputation. Their military ingenuity had become a topic of frequent discussion among the consortium's strategists. One event, in particular, stood out: a skirmish with a rogue faction that sought to challenge Earth's growing influence. The faction had underestimated humanity, assuming that their advanced technology would be enough to subdue a relatively new player on the galactic stage. What they hadn't accounted for was the Americans' penchant for creative problem-solving. Faced with a superior fleet, the Americans employed tactics that alien strategists later described as recklessly brilliant. They weaponized their environment, using asteroid belts as shields and even launching them as projectiles. They modified their ships on the fly, turning cargo freighters into makeshift war vessels. In one instance, they used the electromagnetic interference from a nearby pulsar to temporarily blind the enemy fleet's targeting systems. What appeared to be chaos was, in fact, a calculated strategy, one that relied on bold, unconventional thinking. The battle ended decisively, with the rogue faction retreating in disarray. When questioned about their approach, the American commander simply said, "You fight to win, not to look pretty." The aftermath of the skirmish left the consortium grappling with an uncomfortable truth: Americans weren't just aggressive, they were adaptable in ways that made them nearly impossible to predict. They didn't follow the rules of engagement, they rewrote them, often to devastating effect. This unpredictability extended to their economic ventures as well. In one notable case, an American entrepreneur introduced a line of off-world experiences marketed to affluent aliens. These packages offered a curated taste of Earth's most extreme environments: snowstorms, deserts, deep-sea dives, all recreated in controlled simulations. The concept was baffling to most alien species, who preferred comfort and stability. Yet, the venture became wildly successful, attracting thrill-seekers from across the galaxy. Humans, one alien customer remarked, seem to find joy in courting danger. And somehow, they make it seem fun. As these reports accumulated, the consortium could no longer ignore the patterns emerging. Americans embodied a level of dominance that went beyond physical or technological superiority. They excelled in shaping narratives, bending systems to their advantage, and creating cultural touchstones that resonated across species. They weren't just participants in the galactic community, they were redefining it. The consortium's leadership convened a closed-door meeting to discuss the implications. Some argued that the Americans were a destabilizing force, one that threatened the carefully maintained balance of the galactic coalition. Others countered that their influence, while disruptive, also brought unprecedented opportunities for innovation and growth. What all could agree on was this: Americans were unlike anything the galaxy had encountered before. The final conclusion was sobering. Americans weren't just predators. They were apex predators, masters of adaptation, innovation, and influence. Their presence on the galactic stage was as exhilarating as it was terrifying. And for better or worse, the galaxy would have to learn to live with them. The emergency meeting of the Consortium of Civilized Species was unlike any other in recent history. The chamber was filled with an unusual tension, a mix of admiration and apprehension as the delegates reviewed the final assessments of humanity's cultural and strategic influence. At the center of it all were the Americans, whose outsized impact on the galaxy had sparked intense debate. One of the elder delegates, a respected historian from the crystalline world of Lamera, opened the discussion. It is undeniable that humanity, particularly this subset they call Americans, possesses a unique and potent combination of traits. Their adaptability, creativity, and relentless drive are unparalleled. But we must ask ourselves, can such a force coexist peacefully within our coalition, or will it disrupt the harmony we have worked so hard to maintain? The responses varied widely. A representative from the pacifist planet Mervona expressed deep concerns. Americans thrive on competition, even in situations where cooperation would suffice. They are not content to merely participate, they must dominate. Their influence spreads like a wildfire, consuming and reshaping everything in its path. How can we ensure that our own cultures and traditions will survive such an overwhelming presence? Another delegate, from the resource-rich planet Grelthar, countered. Yes, they are aggressive, but their aggression is tempered by creativity and a sense of purpose. Look at how their innovations have already benefited us. Their agricultural techniques have revolutionized food production on multiple worlds. Their medical advancements have saved countless lives. We cannot ignore the value they bring simply because they challenge our norms. The debate grew increasingly heated, with factions forming on both sides of the argument. Those in favor of full integration emphasized humanity's potential as a force for progress, citing examples of cooperation and shared success. Opponents, however, pointed to the inherent risks of aligning with a species so unpredictable, particularly one whose cultural apex seemed to thrive on bending or outright breaking conventional rules. As tensions rose, the arbiter called for silence and turned to the human delegation. You have heard the concerns of this council. Do you wish to respond? The American representative, a charismatic diplomat with an air of unshakable confidence, stepped forward. His voice carried a calm yet commanding tone that immediately commanded attention. Members of the consortium, I understand your concerns. Humanity is not without its flaws, and Americans, in particular, can be a bit much at times. But I ask you to consider this: what makes us challenging is also what makes us valuable. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle before continuing. We are a species born from adversity. Our history is one of overcoming obstacles, of finding solutions where none seemed possible. Yes, we are competitive, but that competition drives us to improve, to innovate, to push boundaries. It's why we've been able to reach the stars and why we're standing here before you now." The room was silent, the delegates hanging on his every word. "You fear that we will overshadow you, that our influence will erase your traditions. But I say this, our strength lies not in imposing our will but in our ability to adapt and collaborate. We don't seek to dominate this galaxy. We seek to be a part of it, to learn from you as much as you learn from us." He gestured toward the assembled delegates, his tone growing more impassioned. "Every one of your species has something unique to offer, something we can all benefit from. Americans may stand out, but we're just one piece of the puzzle. Together, we can build something greater than any of us could achieve alone." The silence that followed was profound. Even the most skeptical delegates couldn't deny the sincerity and conviction in his words. After a long pause, the arbiter spoke. "Your words carry merit. But actions speak louder. How will you ensure that your people, with all their intensity, contribute to this coalition without destabilizing it?" The American smiled, a glimmer of humor in his eyes. "We'll bring the barbecue to the table, not the battlefield." A ripple of laughter spread through the chamber, breaking the tension. While some delegates remained skeptical, many found themselves unexpectedly charmed. The arbiter, clearly amused, signaled for the vote. When the results were tallied, the decision was clear. Humanity would be granted full membership in the consortium, but with a special designation for Americans. They were officially recognized as apex predators, a term that carried both respect and caution. Guidelines were established to ensure mutual understanding and cooperation, and the consortium prepared for the integration process. As the meeting adjourned, the American representative approached the arbiter with a grin. "So, how about we host the first intergalactic barbecue? We'll bring the brisket, you bring the alien delicacies." The arbiter, still wary but unable to suppress a smile, replied, "I will consider it, cautiously." The story of humanity's inclusion in the consortium became a turning point in galactic history. Over time, the Americans proved to be as dynamic as promised, sometimes challenging, sometimes overwhelming, but always contributing in ways that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Their influence spread, not through conquest or force, but through the undeniable allure of their audacity, creativity, and unyielding optimism. In the end, the galaxy didn't just adapt to the Americans. It thrived because of them. And as alien species embraced new ideas, cultures, and innovations, one thing became clear: the galaxy would never be the same, and for the better.